Good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting for some of the speakers to join us, and we will be starting in the next few moments, I should say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our people in Palestine and in Gaza. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem, for the people who have suffered.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting for some of the speakers to join us.
There is an echo, Maisa.
Next few moments, I should say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our people in Palestine and in Gaza. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem.
Okay.
Sorry, we apologize. We might be having some technical difficulties. Let's fix them, though, please.
Anybody playing the live stream?
All right, let's start.
Should we start? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak for all those who observe Ramadan, especially Ramadan Mubarak and Kareem for our people in Palestine and in Gaza. The people who have endured 16, 17, 18 months of unrelenting genocide. This is the second Ramadan in Gaza after the complete destruction of all the civilian infrastructure, the healthcare system, the housing. This is the second Ramadan our people are observing with no access to clean water, to food, no shelter, no access to healthcare care. Thank you for joining us. We are honored today to be joined by one of the medical heroes, one of the many medical heroes that Gaza presented to the world in the last 18 months and proved that the doctors of Gaza are the most honorable. They are the ones who put their lives, their safety, and their convenience at risk in the service of their people and their patients. Dr. Alser will be joining us soon. He's a little bit late because of internet issues and trying to find a good connection. It is our profound honor to welcome Dr. Alser. He's a surgeon from Gaza, a true medical hero. He was illegally abducted by the Israeli forces and endured 7 months of brutal detention and torture, targeted solely because he was a doctor, as part of Israel's systemic assault on Gaza healthcare system. He, like so many of his colleagues, refused to abandon his patients, upholding the highest principles of medicine despite unimaginable risks. Hundreds of Palestinian doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers remain imprisoned in Israeli torture camps. Many have been killed, and many others have died due to torture. Gaza's medical community exemplifies the true meaning of medicine, sacrificing everything to uphold the sanctity of life. We demand the immediate release of our colleagues and the absolute protection of all healthcare workers, institutions, children, and civilians, without exception and without excuse. Attacking medical workers and facilities is a crime that must never be tolerated. Dr. Awash.
Thank you, Nidal. So as we are waiting for Dr. Alser, Dr. Alser has been not just a surgeon taking care of his patients, but he has also been a vocal advocate against what is happening to his colleagues in Gaza, even though he suffered for 7 months in detention, torture camp. He published, he's the lead author of a Lancet study on the use of telemedicine in Gaza. And I personally have personal experience with Dr. Alser in a group that was providing telemedicine advice to Dr. Alser and his colleagues in Al Nasser Hospital. The group consisted of several medical doctors, neurosurgeons, surgeons, trauma surgeons. I was there as a neurologist. And we reviewed cases with Dr. Alser. Dr. Alser is an exemplary physician. It was such a pleasure to see how he manages his patients. He's a first-rate surgeon, and honestly, he managed cases that he has never managed before. Dr. Alser is very young, and not sure when he finished his residency, but he's a very young surgeon, but he showed excellent expertise and excellent knowledge. And sometimes it was really difficult to give him advice because a lot of the advice that we would give as medical doctors in the Western medicine did not apply in Gaza, like cooling or hydration for traumatic brain injury or certain surgical procedures. They were simply not possible. So they had to improvise in Gaza, in Al Nasser Hospital, and they just needed to do what they could do. Dr. Alser published a study about this telemedicine initiative at the Lancet, and we can put the link for everyone. There has been attacks on that study from other medical doctors who said this is political, this is propaganda. All he did in that study is list his patients and actually speak about the platform that was available to him. This is to say how people politicize medicine in the wrong way against the people who are suffering the most. And it is shameful of those doctors who have attacked the Lancet study as if it is a propaganda, when somebody like me has witnessed these cases firsthand. So we're waiting for Khaled, because Khaled, unfortunately, like many people in Gaza, lives in a tent. His internet is insecure. He's walking towards the hospital looking for a quiet place. Al Nasser Hospital. As most of us know, hospitals are very crowded and a lot of people take shelter in them because people lost their homes and they do not even have tents. So hospitals tend to be extremely crowded, and I am sure that he is, as we are speaking, he's looking for internet and he's looking for a quiet place for him to join us from. Dr. Khaled was abducted in March 2024, and he was released in December, I think. You're muted, Nidal.
Yeah, he was released in October, so it was about
October.
7 months,
Yeah.
and he was abducted from the hospital while he was on duty for no reason. They did not even know him. They only asked him who he is, and he said, "I'm a doctor," and that was the only reason they abducted him, because as part of the genocidal plan is to destroy all means that help to survive the community and the population. And one of these institutions is healthcare and healthcare service, as part of a pre-planned and intentional attack on the healthcare system, on the educational system, the infrastructure system, the water system, the sanitary system, because Israel plan and intention, like once you destroy these facilities that help people survive, you are inflicting on the group conditions of life that will result in their destruction in whole or in part. And unfortunately, they continue to do that until today. We are horrified by the news today that Israel decided to block all aid from going into Gaza. That is another measure of collective punishment on a whole people. This is a war crime by itself to stop all aid from going to a group in a process designed to destroy them, annihilate them. Unfortunately, as we always say, genocidal regimes, genocidal forces, genocidal nations do not stop their crimes by rationing with them, by reasoning with them, by negotiating with them. As long as these regimes are not held accountable, are not put under crippling sanctions, unless there are unless there are international peacekeeping forces to protect the civilians and to force humanitarian corridors to provide for the civilians, these criminals will continue their crimes unhindered. And again, the international community has failed the people of Palestine. They continue to fail them. They are also extending their genocidal crimes and forced displacement and destruction in the West Bank. More than 40 to 50,000 refugees from Jenin refugee camp, from Tulkarem refugee camps, Nur Shams, and others have been forcibly displaced. They are destroying their simple homes that have been housing them since 1948 when they were first displaced from their native land in the 48. And as if that was not enough, Israel and its genocidal regime with full backing and impunity from the West, because the impunity that the West provided them over the last 70 to 80, 100 years is making them feel unstoppable, unaccountable, and they can do whatever they want. And we continue to witness this. The Palestinian people have been victims of the West, victims of the whole world international system, and the direct perpetrators of this genocide that has been going on in the last 100 years is Israel, the Zionist regime, the Zionist project, its leaders, its media, its doctors, its healthcare system. The Israeli doctors who signed letters to bomb Gaza hospitals and kill Gaza doctors and medics are the ones who resulted in the destruction of the infrastructure in Israel. They are the ones who resulted in the abduction of Dr. Alser and his colleagues. They are the ones who are legitimizing the torture and the rape of the doctors, the nurses in the Israeli detention camps. And we hold the Israeli medical system, the Israeli Medical Association, and all the health system in Israel fully complicit and partner in this genocide. We call on the International World Health Association and Medical Association to expel the Israeli Medical Association and all healthcare institutions in Israel from their membership, because they are partners and actively being part of committing a genocide, legitimizing a genocide, and giving the genocidal gangs the license to commit more crimes every day. And again, I apologize for the delay, but it's not in our hand. Dr. Alser, as you all know, is in Gaza, and the situation is hard, and I'm sure he's trying all his best to join us. Hopefully, will still join us soon. So we'll continue talking about what's happening until he joins.
Yeah. So I think if people have questions, they can put them in the chat. In the Nidal, there is one question. Do you know what happened to Dr. Abu Safiya and why is he still not released from Israeli prison?
So again, Dr. Abu Safiya, like Dr. Alser, did not commit any crime. The only crime he committed was being a doctor and being a champion for his patients, for the victims. He refused to abandon them. He refused to shut down the hospital. He insisted that he will continue to provide service for the victims, for the injured people. He actually, as we heard from the Ministry of Health in Gaza and the Ministry of Health in Gaza, offered and talked, communicated with the Israeli forces that if they are worried about any illegal activity happening in the hospital, they are welcome to come and search the hospital. They are welcome to even put a station at the hospital to make sure everything is running, the right way, as long as they are allowed to continue their, sacred mission of providing care and medical treatment for the victims, for the injured. And despite all these appeals, despite many appeals from Dr. Abu Safiya, from all his colleagues, to protect the hospital, to stop attacking the hospital, the genocidal forces, because as we know, they were executing an extermination campaign in the north of Gaza, and they wanted to get rid of all the people in Gaza, destroy all the infrastructure, destroy all signs of hope for the people so they can forcibly displace them to the south. So targeting the hospital was the intention, not the fact that there was any accusations of any illegal activity there. That's why he was abducted. He was tortured on detention. He's tortured in the SDG torture camp, and after that he was moved to multiple other prisons. All of them are none of them is fit to be a prison. These are all torture camps. He was denied any access to his lawyers until almost 2 months after his detention, and even when they allowed that, did not provide anything of substance, and they immediately, since they don't have any charges on him, they don't have any evidence against him, they immediately start changing his status and start treating him as an illegal combatant. It is a law that Israel has that gives them a license to detain people for unlimited time without any charges and without any rights and without any legal access to legal counsel.
There is another, I just heard from Dr. Alser, he's trying to join. There is a question from Sylvia Patrici. She says, I am a physician in Boston. I'm ashamed that no US medical organization or academic institutions have voiced the support to healthcare providers in Gaza. What can we do? How can we provide support? Sylvia, I am a physician in Boston as well. And this question that you have occupies my mind all the time. Our institutions have really failed in condemning genocide, which is the highest crime in humanity, and it is a shame that they did not do that. In fact, one organization, American Academy of Pediatrics, the president of American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement to Antony Blinken inquiring, and I say inquiring, about the whereabouts of Dr. Abu Sofia, and inquired also about the status of the healthcare in Gaza. And I don't think Antony Blinken responded, and obviously now there is another administration. But unfortunately, what happened is there was a pushback from other organizations saying that the president of American Academy of Pediatrics is anti-Semitic and is politicizing this, and that she should not do that. And then there was an internal memorandum inside the American Academy of Pediatrics saying that there will be no discussion about Palestine, Gaza, or anything like that. So instead of standing up for the bullies and making sure that we actually support our own colleagues, we find our institutions and our associations actually cowarding and hiding and not pushing back, which is the problem. And it is really the problem that continues to enable this genocide, because instead of fighting back, we are seeing that people are just letting it go. And as Dr. Jbour said, any genocidal regime cannot be stopped without very strong position against it and very strong force. So it is very disappointing. What can we do? I think what we are doing is to speak up, to continue to organize outside our institutions and outside our associations, create our own justice-oriented anti-genocide organizations and associations, and work together to create a new reality for us as a medical community that supports our colleagues when they are being targeted. And we should make clear that healthcare should never be a target, should never be under attack, because without healthcare, the chance for survival for anyone falls dramatically, and that is a genocidal activity. I'm trying to get Dr. Alser in.
Is he in as a participant, Karama?
I sent him a link, but let me send him just maybe we can lift him up from the.
I'm looking for him. There's a few participants who joined as phone numbers, but Dr. Alser Are
Is
you
he
in the
there?
audience? Maybe send us a message if you're in the audience, and then I'll.
It's
Oh,
really
there he is. Perfect.
oh here.
I think
Oh,
he's here.
yay!
Dr.
Alhamdulillah.
Khaled, do you hear us? You are muted.
Fashionably late. Like while we're waiting for Khaled to mute Dr. Sunan. There he is.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to be late.
Oh,
I've
no.
just had difficulty to get an internet access.
ولا يهمك.
Do you think you can have the video or oh here? Okay.
Yes.
اهلا وسهلا.
يلا يا هلا
كل عام وانت بخير.
وانتم بخير صحة وسلامة.
افطرت ولا لسه؟
And والله إلي ساعة بس يعني أنا المشكلة اضطريت إنه أجي من مكان إقامتي أنا في خيمة جيت من مكان إقامتي على المستشفى. I'm here in the ICU department because here there is a good signal, a good internet signal. So at any moment, it might interrupt me in any incident inside the ICU.
So you just said that you live in a tent and you just had your
Yes,
iftar in the tent, and
yes.
of course there is no
Alhamdulillah,
internet,
I'm
no
better than
connection there,
many.
and you just came to the hospital because that's the ICU is the only area that has some internet connection.
I trying to join in the second floor. I was in the surgical department here in the building, but there it's bad internet signal. So there's no choice for me.
So usually, like if you fast one day, it counts as, I mean, a lot in terms of religious sacrifice. But I think one day in Gaza and in the tent and without having access
Yes,
to anything should count like a million days. So
yes,
you,
of
our
course.
people in Gaza, are special. I mean, you are our heroes. We are honored to have you. Um, Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your steadfastness. For you, all your colleagues, all our people in Gaza, we are deeply honored. You are our role models. You are the heroes of the medical community. You should be our compass and our moral obligation. We are learning from you, and we are honored to have you at the Doctors Against Genocide webinar, weekly webinar. We intentionally decide to uplift the voices of the healthcare workers, the doctors, the people of Gaza who are going through the genocide. We don't want you to be the subject of the discussion. We want you to be the voice. We want to hear from you directly. We don't want to talk about you. We want to hear from you. So you talk about yourself in your voice, in your accent that looks like, I don't know, is it British, Australian, American mix? But
It's a
it
mix
sounds
between us.
good. So thank you, Dr. Khaled. Dr. Karama.
Um, Khaled, I'm wondering whether you can talk to us about the publications that you have written and the pushback that you got from the Lancet article that you published. And just tell us about your experience writing, being an advocate. You are very brave because even though you were detained for 7 months, you actually came out and you did not just cower and do nothing. You're speaking, you're talking to us. This is an act of courage that is unparalleled because we know what it means to speak up in Gaza. We have seen what happened to Dr. Abu Safia, who has been speaking to us every week, just telling us about his patients and that he wants to save his hospital. And we know what happened to him. His son was killed and he was detained and incarcerated. So we want to hear from you. How do you do it? How do you get your courage? What have you done? Who helped you? We want to hear everything, basically.
Karama, do you mind, guys? Can we start, because for people who don't know Dr. Khaled, can you start by telling us what happened to you, how you got detained, when, how was your time, the torture, camps there. Then after you came back, we want to hear also about all your honorable work and dedication, if you don't mind. So we have it,
Uh, okay. First of all, thank you all for your efforts, for your support. This means a lot to doctors, to everyone here on the ground. I will speak about what happened to me in short. Back in January, February, it was still active war. We received a lot of casualties every day. We had like 2 or 3 mass casualty incidents here at Nasser Hospital. In the middle of January, IDF invaded the hospital zone, Khan Yunis city, and they surrounded all the city, and they put a siege around the city. At that time, I remember for myself, I was standing in the operation theater with a patient on table. There was no surgeon at all available except of me to do the surgery. All of my colleagues decided to leave. I'm not blaming anyone, but they have to displace their families outside the active military action here at Khan Yunis. So I have 2 options at that time: either to leave the hospital and flee with my family. I were here in the hospital with my parents. Either to leave the hospital, because there was the only chance was within hours, either to leave the hospital, or otherwise the IDF will put a complete siege and you will not be able to go outside. At that moment, I decided to do the surgery, and I put my phone away because I was trying to call my brothers outside Khan Yunis, but I put my phone away. I decided to do the surgery, and from that moment, I decided to stay at Nasser Hospital. Even after that, I have many choices to leave the hospital, but seeing that me as the only hope for casualties for patients coming to the hospital. So for January and February, I operated several cases, which were complicated cases, and sometimes cases I have no experience at all in. So I developed an idea. I established an idea with my cousin Osaid, supported me a lot in this idea to do a WhatsApp group collecting all the healthcare specialists, consultants from everywhere to give me because they were not able, everyone wanted to help Gaza, but they were not able to come here to give their opinion, to be part of the healthcare worker here providing the help to the injured ones. So at that time, I decided to do that group, and I shared every case with them, trying to get their opinions.
So,
We call it.
Dr. Khaled, if you don't mind, I mean, so you are a new graduate, you are a new surgeon, and did not have
Yes, I have finished my residency program just before the war in September 23.
So you are a new graduate, a new general surgeon out there,
Yes.
who were left in a hospital taking care of hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of casualties every day, the most complicated cases in the world. And you wanted to find a way that you, as a new graduate general doctor, how you can do all kinds of complicated surgeries that you have never done before. And you try to search for some advice or help from international doctors, international surgeons. So you created this WhatsApp to guide you for the complicated cases, yes?
Yes, of
Okay,
course. So we put like a clear plan for every patient I receive. At that time, it was very difficult or even impossible to call anyone in Gaza because the Israeli soldiers and the IDF destroyed all the infrastructures. I was not able to call my brothers in Rafah, and even they don't have any internet access. So the only thing that connects us to outside world, outside the hospital, is using the eSIM card, calling anyone outside Palestine, outside Gaza. So and actually, it was a risky mission. Trying to get an internet signal at that time was a risky mission, because to get an a good internet signal, we have to go to the 40th floor on a balcony, and we were exposed to soldiers, snipers, and many of press personnel and even relatives here and some of our colleagues got shot by snipers trying to get an internet signal on the window or in the balcony. So every case at that time, I shared it with my friends and our cyber group, and they gave me their opinion. And we bought a clear plan according to available equipments here in the hospital. And also, I gave him the feedback about what's the result and the outcome of what I did to the patient. And one of the time I remember, I'm not a cardiologist. I have not even did an echocardiogram for a patient, but one of my friends were cardiologists, consultant cardiologists, who shared me with videos trying to guide me, instruct me how to do it. And I took a photo and videos for these cases and sent them back to him. And he guided me to get a proper view. So at that time, there was no other specialties like ENT. There was no neurosurgery, no plastic surgeon, and also we don't have cardiologists at the hospital. So I am the only option for the patient to get the proper care for them. So I try to do my best to provide them with the care they needed. This was in late January and February. Late January, like in the 15th, since from 15th of January till 15th of February, for the whole month, every day, I'm trying to connect the outside world. And they also were very supportive, very helpful for me, not only for the cases, they gave me the courage and the support to keep me continue my job here. And in 15th of February, IDF invaded because they put a siege around the city, and they get closer and closer toward the hospital zone until they put a siege around the hospital, and they reached the gates of Nasser Complex, Nasser Hospital, in 15th of February. At that time, they invaded the hospital. There was a lot of details about what happened, how they displaced, ordered us to evacuate all the buildings, and to all the patients, we put them in one building. And most of our patients at that time were either they get lower limb fractured with X-fix or a spinal cord injury, or old age patient, bedridden patients. We, at that time, the Israeli soldiers captured half of the healthcare personnel here at Nasser Hospital, including Dr. Nahid Abu Taima, the head of surgical department, Dr. Ghassan Abu Zuhri, the head of orthopedic department, Mahmoud Abu Shhada, the head of orthopedic department, also one of my colleagues, Ahmed Musa, one of the surgical team. And in addition to nurses and administrative staff here, in the next week, we have to take care of 150 patients in the hospital without any electricity, without water, without drinking water, and they forced us. They like separate the healthcare worker and the staff here into groups. I was one of the leader of one of the group. It consisted of 15 persons, doctors, nurses. We have to give care for 150 patients, bedridden patients, including spinal cord injury, lower limb fractures, children, old age, without the minimum equipment. We don't have even the minimum tools to get the vital signs for the patient. So at that time, it was very difficult for us because we have to give them water, food, in addition to give them the medical care, and sometimes to take care of their personal hygiene on bed, because they forced all the patients to be alone without any relative, without any caregiver with them. This happened in February, from 15th of February till 25th of February. The Israeli soldiers were inside the hospital, and we continued to do our job despite this. And after the Israeli soldier retrieved from the hospital on 25th of February, we started to refer the patients to other hospital in Rafah and in Deir al-Balah, the middle area of Gaza Strip. And at that time, I had an option either to leave the hospital, to go to Rafah to join my family in Rafah, or to stay in the hospital, aiming to clean the hospital, trying to open it again, as to open the hospital again as a medical point, at least to receive casualties from different sites, because at that time I remember Netanyahu continued to threat Rafah that he will invade Rafah city. In late of March, I was here the leader of the hospital on field with my nurses, doctors, and also administrative staffs trying every day. It was Ramadan also, and we tried every day to clean the hospital and to check all the equipments and to get electricity again to the hospital. In 24th of March, IDF invaded the hospital again. But at that time, it was within 1 hour or 2 hours. We were shocked that the Israeli soldiers are at the gate of Nasser Hospital in the middle of the night. They started to shoot anyone walking in the street, including two of my colleagues. Were nurses with me inside the hospital. When the soldiers invaded the city, they were at the gate of the Nasser hospital trying to get a phone call, a signal to their phones, and they were surprised by the soldiers in front of them, and they started to shoot everywhere and anyone moving outside the hospital on the street. After 2 days, they ordered us in the hospital to evacuate all the building. And they put us in groups like 5 each time. And every time they order us to take off all of our clothes in front of everybody, including women with us. And they put us, all of us, in a civilian building, because they converted that building to a command center for them. And they put like about 30 persons in one room. And in the following 5 days, I stayed at that room, handcuffed by a plastic tie from my behind and blindfolded with a piece of cloth. And they took me for interrogation. They just dragged me to the 3rd floor in the same building, and there was a guy speaking Arabic asking me. He introduced himself as a soldier in interrogation center, Mukhabarat. He told me that he is from Mukhabarat, and he asked me about my name, my job, and what I did in October 7, what I did during the war inside the hospital. So he did not know anything about me, actually. The only thing he gets is the information I told him about as a surgeon working in the hospital. And it was a short interrogation, actually. And then he sent me back to the ground floor. And in the next 2 days, they forced me to go outside that building in the middle of the night, while the soldiers were in all the buildings surrounding the hospital and also inside the hospital. They forced me to go outside, trying to start up the electrical generator. And at that time, it was very risky because the electrical generator is in an exposed area outside the buildings, and I either get shooted by
either the Israeli soldier or the anyone here from Gaza trying to shoot the soldiers because I was wearing a black. They put me a black sweater over me, and
So do you
that
mean,
time
Dr. Khaled, do you
they
mean
gave me 2 gallon.
Dr.
I'm
Khaled,
not hearing you actually.
do you hear me? Hello? Do you hear me now?
1 minute.
Hello? Okay. Don't worry about it. Do you hear me now?
I'm hearing you. I'm trying to get the.
Okay.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yes.
So do you mean to say that they used you as a human shield?
Yes, of course, because they were afraid to go to that area. They gave me 2 gallon of fuel to get the electrical generator started again.
If you can talk without this is better because this is making an echo in your voice, please. Without the headset.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better, please. Thank you.
So at that time, I failed to start up the generator because actually I'm not an engineer or even I'm a doctor. I'm not know anything about this. After that, they forced me to go again among with soldiers to identify for them the sections inside the emergency department, and I was shocked because they were digging in the ground in the emergency department, and they used also another Palestinian to dig instead of them to dig in the floor. And the thing that after I have been released, my colleagues here in the hospital told me that they found a Palestinian body, a man killed and thrown on the floor at the same site that it. So they use a civilian Palestinian, to dig in the floor, and after he finished his job, they killed him and throw him in the floor in the emergency department.
So they
After,
asked him to dig his grave, his own grave.
yes, he digged his own grave. Uh, After 1 day of this, they came in the middle of the night. It was 1 a.m. and they called my name. In addition to 2 other Palestinian civilian were with me in the civilian building. Just a second, please. So to continue, after 1 day of this, on 30th of March, they invaded the civilian. 2 soldiers came to me calling my name. In addition to 2 other Palestinians were with me, and they removed my plastic plastic tie of my hands, and they put it behind my back, and it was very tight. I was screaming in pain, trying to ask him just to listen it and to lose it a little bit, but he mocked me and he said, "You are a doctor, and you know 1 or 2 hours will not cut your hand, just you will feel and suffer in pain." And also he put a plastic tie in my ankles, and this actually did like a paresthesia in my hand for the whole 6 months inside until now. I feel a paresthesia in my hand, and most of the prisoner also feel the same until now. When they get outside the prison, they came seeking medical advice regarding this, and also in my ankles, and they put a piece of cloth also on my eyes, and they throw me in a vehicle, a military vehicle, in addition to 2 other prisoners, and there was a soldier standing over us, putting his foot over me, and all the way toward the prison, he was beating me with his baton, is kicking with his feet, and it was for me the worst night ever I experienced during the prison. Is the way to the prison was the worst night ever for me, because for 2 or 3 hours they continued to beat me, curse me, and when I shouted in pain because of my hands, they were very painful to me. And trying to act like someone who has like a seizure or somehow has convulsion, trying to get them just to listen to me, to cut the plastic ties. But instead of that, they stopped the vehicle and they came to me, beating me with the back of their guns, and they ordered me to be silent. So I did not have any choice other than being silent, feeling pain in silence. And during transferring me to the prison,
Dr.
they
Khaled,
stopped.
Dr.
Yes,
Khaled, you mean the torture camps, not the prison. It's not a real, I mean, you're not a prisoner.
not a prison.
You did not commit a crime to go to a prison.
No
Yeah.
one, no one can imagine the situation there. Even if I try to describe it, you will not imagine how they treated us in that camp. They treat us less than an animal. That they put us inside the cage, a huge cage with a metallic fence, 100 prisoner with the same area, surrounded by a metallic fence, with only one bathroom, and they gave us the food with a very small amount of food, and every minute there and every hour they trying to like be creative in using the method of humiliation against us. And the most humiliating thing, they put soldiers the youngest age, 18 year or 19 year, in front of this cage, controlling 100 men, including professors in universities and doctors, teachers. So every minute there, they trying to control every thing we do in Sditi Man. And actually, at that time, I did not know anything where I am going. At that night, the only thing I hoped that the night will end, either because during their transfer, one of them spoke in Arabic. He told his the soldier with him that these three will be killed. in عربي حكى انه ثلاثة معدومين ورمان على الارض. So he threw us on the ground and he said these three will be killed. And at that time, I did not think clearly, because the only thing I was thinking about is my hands will cut, and I just this night to end either way, either to kill me or to send me to a prison, waiting to rest in on a bed. I was imagining the prison as a room with prisoners inside it, beds and mattresses. But I was shocked because I was thrown in a cage, as you said. It was like a huge cage, and they throw me inside it. They gave me a mattress, but it was very thin mattress, did not to protect me from the floor. You just getting sit on the floor, and you are not allowed even to sleep or to get comfortable inside that prison. You have to be seated for 17 hours, continuous 17 hours. And you don't even allowed to put your hand to rest your back or even to get a comfortable position while you're sitting. And all of the time inside Sditi Man, we were handcuffed by a metallic handcuffs. My eyes were covered by a piece of cloth all of the time. So any prisoner trying to sneak or to look, he will be punished. Anyone trying to get comfortable or to just to put his elbow on the ground, he will be punished. And we were 100 prisoners inside one area, and we were not allowed even to talk with each other. Anyone talk with the one beside him, he will be punished. And I witnessed a lot of prisoners get punished just because they trying to pray, to do dua with themselves. They moving their lips. So the soldiers caught them. They get punished because they moving their lips. in the first 2 weeks, I was in a shook state. I could not believe what is going on. I thought that I was in a nightmare. And after, it was like in Saturday. In Monday, the prisoners within me, they told me that the worst thing here in the prison is not the punishment by the soldiers in front of you, because all of the time we were monitored by 3 soldiers, 2 of them carrying guns, pointing against us, and one of them, he's the controller of that prison. And I told you he's a 18 or 17-year-old. The worst thing they told me is the Force 100. In Arabic, we call them, as prisoners, we call them فرقة الكلاب, the dogs force, because every week, they invaded the cage, the huge cage, by their force without any announcement or warning. They just throw a sound bomb, and after that, they ordered everyone on their tummies, كله على بطنه, and they invaded the cell. And we forced to be on our tummies, raising our hands while we are handcuffed, raising our hands, and to stay still, because they will choose randomly anyone from the prisoners, and they put him aside, and like 15 soldiers trying to beat him using baton, using their fists, and they cursing us a lot. And the sad thing, there were soldiers speaking Arabic fluently. I don't know their ethnicity, but they spoke Arabic fluently, cursing us with bad words a lot. And being in that situation, even if you are not beating, being in your tummy with your eyes closed and your hands above your head, hearing the voice and the sound of beating of other prisoner, he's shouting in pain. And we don't know, we are not allowed to see anyone trying to sneak. He will be beating, just they choose randomly anyone from that prison. I have been beaten twice during my stay in Sditiman. I'm lucky because the only thing happened to me is just a broken rib. I did not suffer from a broken arm. They did not did a sexual abuse for me. Other prisoners, they, after the finish of that force, they came to me and they asking me my advice because they were beaten a lot using the baton. Some of them, they put the baton in their private area, sexually assault them with the baton. And some of them get pepper spray over their faces, and sometimes they take off their clothes and put the pepper spray over their private parts. One of the prisoners, and 2 of them actually, the soldiers during the invasion, this force, they used the electrical gun in their private areas, and they suffered a lot. Like after this, they were not able to control their bowel movement for the next weeks inside the prison.
Thank you so much, Khaled. Thank you
Trying to
for
remember these memories actually, because
really
there was a lot of details. In my last interview, I told the TV that if I'm trying to speak in details of what happened, it will take me too much time to speak for every single incident that I witnessed or either be part of it inside the Sditiman. I remembered one of the prisoners, his name is Ibrahim. He's a 23-year-old. At that time, he was near me inside the prison in Sditiman. the soldiers were shouting a lot and hitting the fence. So he suddenly stood up and started to shake and pee on himself and poo on himself and started to scream a lot. I'm trying to calm him, but he mistakenly thought that I am a soldier from the guards, because he started to hallucinate. He lost his mind. He got mental. And in the next 2 weeks, I remembered myself taking care of him, putting a diaper on him, trying to, because every day he has the same thing. He has every day, twice, stood without any announcement. He just stood screaming in pain and pee and poo on himself, and trying every day and trying to take care of him, to take him to the shower, change his diaper. And after 1 week of this, Ibrahim told me his story, because while he is inside the interrogation, they call themselves Force 504. They beated him a lot inside that interrogation room. But the worst thing is not the beating, is not the sexual assault for him. One day, when the soldier showed him a live video in the tablet of his wife's house. She was pregnant, and he told me a story that one of the day while his wife is pregnant, he got like $100, and he decided to spend all the $100 on the coming baby, because he was very excited to get a child. And during the interrogation, when the soldiers show him the live stream of his wife's house, he threatened him that if he did not say that he was one of the military guy, he will bomb his wife's house. And Ibrahim thought it was just threats, and unfortunately the soldier committed his threats and bombed the house. And he allowed Ibrahim to see by his eyes the bombing, the ambulances coming to the house, and the civil defense coming to the house. Ibrahim told me at that moment he did not be affected in front of the soldier, but when he get back to the prison area, to the cage, he thought deeply in this, and at that moment, he believed that he lost his child and his wife, and he lost his mind. He became mental. Ibrahim is still in the prison, and when I get released, I asked about his family, and it was in the news. His family has been killed by a bomb, by an airstrike in Rafah back in June.
So sorry, Khaled.
This is just one of the story. If I want to tell you about an old guy, 70-year-old from Al-Kurd family, he's a person with Alzheimer. They mocked him. They trying to spray the pepper spray on his face. He's an old guy with Alzheimer. He did not know what he's speaking. They captured him back in Rafah. And after that, they decided to put the metallic handcuffs on his hand, on the back. And for the next 2 days, they refused to release his hands from the back. And also that person was Alzheimer and he refused to get any water or food. And every time I tried to tell the soldiers to get a medical care for him, they refused. After 3 days or even 5 days of this situation, the metal, they bruise, and not to bruise, they reached the bone in his wrist.
Cut through
Yes.
his bone, yeah?
They cut through his bone.
He's
And
70 years old?
they started to get gangrene. So I begged the soldiers to get a doctor for him, and they finally get a doctor, but it was too late because his hands get gangrene, both of his hands. And they sent him to the hospital. I don't know the fate of that prisoner, actually.
Ah,
Go ahead, continue, Khaled. Continue. I'm
At that,
sorry.
at that prison also, we have a lot of young children, 17-year-old, 16-year-old, with the same time with the old. We have different age group inside the prison. They don't give any mercy either to children or even to old persons inside the prison. I remember one of the prisoners back in City Man, the soldiers decided to mock him and to punish him just because his shape, his look, like they call him chimpanzee. So every day when the soldiers and the guards came to the cage, they decided to punish him just because of his look.
this
Did
is
they ever ask you, did they ever tell you why you're there? I mean, did they ever tell you, I mean, your charges? I mean, why you're being abducted and or any one of your
And first, I was
fellow?
in Sliman from 30th of March till 18th of June. In like 20th of May, without any prior interrogation, I was in Sliman. The guards came to the cell and to the cage, and they asked my name. They called my name, and they put the blindfold over my eye, and they handcuffed my hands from my behind. And they took me outside the prison area. They put me like 10 meters, just 10 or 20 meters away from the prison or from the cage. They put me on a chair and they removed the eye cover. At that time, uh, I when they removed the eye cover, I saw a video call in front of my eye, a person speaking in Arabic fluently, and he told me, "Now you are in a court." I replied to him that I did not have any legal consultation. I did not have a chance to call a lawyer. How you put me in? I did not have even an official interrogation with me inside the prison. So he refused and ignored all my saying. He just want to do like an act to record a video that every prisoner has an actual charge, but all of this is fake. After that, he charged me that I am part of a terrorist organization and you will be punished to be inside the prison until the end of the war. This happened to all the prisoners, even if they decided to release him after 1 week or 2 weeks, or even to keep him inside the prison for the end of the war. This is just like an act. And in June, when I received a visit from my lawyer, he was part of Physician for Human Rights, and when he visited me, he told me this is just a fake court for them. It's not an actual court. So they charged me with this fake charge in this fake court in May, and after that, on 18th of June, they started to send me to interrogation. So they interrogated me after they brought the charge on me. On 18th of June, when they took me to the interrogation, the only questions there were about the same questions when they interrogated me here in the hospital area about my identity, my job, my career as a general surgeon inside the hospital. They asked about the hospital sections and departments, and that's all. Nothing related to me in person. The only thing they were focused during the interrogation is about my job as a general surgeon inside the prison, inside the hospital during the war.
Thank you, Khaled. And just to follow up on your comment, the the way that the Israeli soldiers treat Palestinians, even when they are not in prison, they send warnings to people. You are going to be killed. Your family is going to be killed. The psychological warfare is part of our lives in Palestine. As you all know, we are Palestinians, myself, Dr. Jbour, Mesa. We are from the West Bank, and Khaled is Palestinian from Gaza. And we all experience this intimidation where we're completely dehumanized, denied any decency and any human rights. And I know from my own experience that community healthcare workers in the refugee camps have been threatened with their family, with their livelihood. And a lot of the time, the threat comes true. And one of our, who is sending a smiley, a laughter face?
Must be a Zionist genocide supporter and war criminal, child murderer. So don't ignore them. Ignore them. I mean, there are some child murderers out there who try to break into these spaces. So we just want to recognize you as such, as you're a child murderer and supporting child murder. Ignore them, Karam.
So we're very familiar. We continue to be humans. We continue to have heroes like you, Khaled. Your strength is unbelievable. The fact that you are back in the hospital, the fact you are speaking to us, the fact that you are recalling all this with such grace and such humanity is a testimony to the strength of our people in Palestine. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I cannot be prouder of you. I have seen you interact with us before you were detained, and we were worried sick about you, and we're so happy that you are released, and we are so sorry that this happened. And it is on us to end this genocide and to put an end to this genocidal psychopathological regime. And if the Israeli doctors want to do something, they should have done it many, many months ago. They should have took a stand, and they should have written to all the other medical associations that are turning their face and turning their eyes away from what is happening in Palestine. So performative gestures of support here and there without calling what is happening a genocide that has been ongoing for decades is not enough. I am really sorry.
So those Israeli doctors who serve in these detention and torture camps and who enable the torture of the abducted civilians there, they used to have interns, Israeli interns who have no experience in doing any surgery, to go and practice on those prisoners and to practice with amputations for the hands and the wrists that got the gangrene, as Dr. Khaled described, from
Can I say
being
something
handcuffed.
regarding this issue?
And they actually, one of those doctors said, is Gaza is like the heaven for the trainees, Israeli medical trainees, because they go and practice there.
I think Khaled wants to say something.
Back when I was in Stitiman, there was section A, B, C, D. In section A, we used to call it the section A, Aleph. This section where all of the injured with amputations were inside that area, because there was something called a hospital near it. They call it Bet Cholim in Hebrew. During my stay inside section A, every day we hear the screaming of patients, prisoner. They did procedures, surgical procedures for them without any analgesia. One of the prisoners lost his life. You were inside they call it a hospital, just a tent. They get amused by torturing the patients inside it. They call themselves as a doctor. One of the prisoners has an abscess inside the cage, and I tried to tell the soldiers he has an abscess in his knee, and he could not sit properly at that time. And I tried to tell the soldiers we need a doctor, and even when the doctor came, he ignored him And all of the time they punished him because he has an infection, he has a pain in his knee. And I remembered one of the day I decided to intervene because they ignored him. He needed to be incised and to get the abscess outside. So I took him in a covered area inside a room which is for taking shower. And I took him to that hidden area, used a sharp plastic piece to open the abscess to relieve his pain, because he was shouting in pain, and every day they ignored him. They refused to get him a doctor, and instead of this they punished him because he could not sit properly from his pain. One of the time when I was captured back in 30th March, myself, I had an infection, an abscess in my upper thigh. I underwent a surgery, an incision. It was a large incision in my upper thigh. So I had to take care of myself, because the first day when they came to me, they refused even to make a surgical, to make a dressing for my infection. So I have to take care of myself. And to do that, while I am handcuffed and blindfolded, I had to take off my pants in front of everybody and to clean my infection or the incision, and to put a piece of gauze. They just provide me with a small piece of gauze over the infection area. I remember at that time when the paramedic or the nurse, when they came to distribute the medication, he gave me an antibiotic, an omeprazole, and also an analgesia, like 5 or 6 pills. I tried to take them in separate, 2 each time. He forced me to get them all one time. I told the paramedic that I am a doctor, just speak me quietly, and after that he was speaking Arabic. He shouted at me, he cursed at me, and every time he came to the cage, he told his the other paramedics who is not speaking Arabic, that this is a terrorist, kept annoying him, and that hurt me a lot. And because one of the time when he came to give me the medication, and every day he came in the morning to give me the medication, and when I saw that person, the paramedic, coming to the cage, I refused to take the medication, because when I went to just get the bills from him, he continued to humiliate me in front of everybody. And also these paramedics and these doctors, when Force 100 invaded the cage, they accompanied them, because every time they invaded the cage, one of the prisoners will have a broken arm, a broken rib, or will faint on the ground. So they accompany them just to make sure nobody will be killed at that time. I witnessed back in Section D in Slitiman, one of the prisoners from a Susi family. The soldiers invaded the hospital, the cage 3 times in a row. Every day they invaded that cage. They choose that person to beat him. In the 4th day, we tried to wake him up, but he was killed. He died like from the continuous beating. We are not allowed, even me, I'm not allowed to speak freely inside the prison with the prisoners. If I try to speak with any one of them, I will be punished myself. I was punished several times. One of the time in Zlitiman, I was tired. Like spontaneously, my head fell down because I fell asleep. So they decided just to punish me, because out of my hand, my head went down during my sitting in Zlitiman. So they controlled everything inside the Zlitiman, everything regarding the prisoners. They control our life inside it. And they intend to humiliate us even when we needed a surgical care or a medication. They mocked us. Anyone asked about analgesia, they mocked us. They kept saying, you are strong, drink water, this will help you, this is the only option for you. And they said it in Arabic, انت قوي اشرب مي, this is the only option for you. And the only drinking water actually is the tap water, and it's from the chloride in the water.
But it seems we lost connection with Dr. Khaled, which is not surprising, knowing that he has bad connection. So maybe for the meantime, we want to welcome.
Do you want to play the nasheed?
No, I'll wait for him when he comes back. Maybe we can do it later on when he gets a connection. But maybe for the meantime, we want to welcome our next guest speaker from Amnesty International, Alicia Cote-Solieris. I hope I'm saying it right.
Yes, thank you.
She's the United States country specialist at Amnesty International for the state of Palestine and the occupied Palestinian territories. Thank you, Alicia, for being with us. You and Amnesty International have presented a landmark report about the genocide crime committed by Israel in Palestine. We really appreciate all the work that went through this. We really appreciate your personal and your colleagues, very skillful and detailed investigation and reporting of those crimes to come with the final result that there is enough evidence to meet the criteria for genocide being committed by the state of Israel, if we can call it so, against the Palestinian people. Thank you for being here with us to present these findings and to have a discussion about this. Before we talked to one of our colleagues in Gaza, who's a surgeon who was detained by the Israeli genocidal gangs for almost 7 months. He and his fellow abductees were tortured as he was talking to us, and they continue to endure this unimaginable suffering in Gaza. He himself lives in a tent now, and took him a long time to even make it to the hospital to have some sort of internet connection, and it seems we lost him too. So thank you, Alicia. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Hawash.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. The title of the report is "You Feel Like You Are Subhuman: Israel Genocide Against Palestinians in Gaza." And we would love to hear from you about the synthesis of the report. How did you come up with it? And the reception of the report, and how we can help Amnesty International advocate for the end of genocide, and how we can also mobilize other institutions, other societies to accept the report or investigate the findings to come up with their own conclusions instead of being silent about it. We appreciate the report. We have used it in our advocacy as Doctors Against Genocide. We have called it a genocide long time ago because we have seen the writing on the wall, and we have been waiting and waiting for other organizations to reach the same conclusion. So we were very pleased to hear from Amnesty International's report, Doctors Without Borders, Physicians for Human Rights. It was a bit late, and we would have hoped that the reports came much earlier, but I understand that sometimes things take time. So we would love to hear from you, and please talk to us. Thank you.
Well, I thank you very much for the invitation to join the conversation today. I really do appreciate it. And we do feel, a lot of us feel that the report, it was a long time coming, but there were, it was several months of collecting information and interviews that that took place, and the researchers wanted to make sure that before they got this out to the public, that the information was correct and solid, because, as many of you may know, Amnesty International does get a lot of pushback when reporting on the occupied West Bank and in Gaza. So we wanted to make sure that the information was good and solid before it went out, to make sure that we didn't get, or at least that we wouldn't be faced with as much criticism that we have in the past. So again, yes, the report, You Feel Like You're a Subhuman, that was released in December of 2024. And what Amnesty International was able to conclude after 212 reports from different people in Gaza on the ground. It was coming from just citizens that live there and that have witnessed the airstrikes and have been displaced over the past year and a half, from medical staff, from other NGOs. That's how they went about collecting the information that they did. So it was a lot of information coming from a lot of different places all at the same time. So very quickly, for those who don't know, the Gaza Strip has had, for lack of a better word, very difficult history. In the past 17 or 18 years or so, they have been under blockade. A lot of people think that the actions that happened on October 7th, 2023, were the beginning of something, but in reality, that was a reaction to something. Just the Gaza Strip alone has seen a number of wars since they have been under blockade. In 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021. Those have been other times where the citizens of Gaza have been under attack, or there's a war that has broken out. And when we say the word blockade, what that means is that nothing coming in or out of the Gaza Strip can move without the approval of the Israeli government. And that includes food, access to clean and safe water, electricity, building materials. As I stated, there's been a number of wars in the past several years. So even just reconstruction material and larger construction equipment to rebuild, those things all have to be approved before coming into the Gaza Strip. So before October 7th, the people living in the Gaza Strip were already living under miserable conditions. In fact, in 2012, the UN had put out a report, and it stated that if conditions don't improve by 2020, that Gaza would be unlivable. And here we are now in 2025. We've seen a number of wars. We have this current one that has been going on, and now not even a war. Now we recognize that a genocide is happening since 2023. So the conditions prior to October 7th were already miserable. But what happened on October 7th, when Hamas was able to breach the border wall? Yes, there was loss of life on that day on both sides. But Hamas was very clear in what they were, why they did what they did. And this, of course, is not to justify any type of violence. The loss of life for anyone is a tragedy. Even for soldiers, they go into that line of work knowing that they may be killed in the line of duty. But at the end of the day, that's still somebody's child. So it's still a tragedy. But Hamas was very clear, and a lot of Western media were not reporting this, so people didn't know. They're referring to the actions as a terrorist attack, and the Israelis and the Israeli government are victims of another terrorist attack. But they were clear on why they did what they did that day. It was because of the ongoing occupation. So the occupied West Bank, which includes communities like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, Jericho. These are all cities that are in the occupied West Bank. And if you are a Christian, you know them from, the Bible stories. A lot of people don't realize when we talk about the Palestinians that are being persecuted, it's not just the Muslim communities, it's the Christian communities as well. This is the birthplace of Christ, is now under military occupation that is almost 60 years old. It has been in place since 1967. And a military occupation that is supposed to be a temporary military tactic. But like I said, it's been almost 60 years since that has been in place. So people within the West Bank, they do have a little bit more freedom than people living in the Gaza Strip, but their lives are still dictated by the Israeli government. There's a number of military orders that are put in place to dictate their lives. A lot of them are, you listen to what they are, and you think it's just put in place just to make the lives of the Palestinians miserable. Because some of them, they say that everything is done in the reasoning behind the military orders is because of security reasons. So you can maybe justify that when you're talking about the movement of people, how many people can be at a protest, those sort of things. But there's also a military order that says you have to get permission on what you can plant on your own property. So whether it's hydrangeas or roses, or it's cucumbers or tomatoes, I'm not sure how that is in any way, shape, or form a security issue, but these are the type of things that are put in place for the Palestinians under the military occupation in the occupied West Bank. And again, this is ongoing. This is before October 7th. So with that, let's see. So with Amnesty's research, we'll go back to the Gaza Strip. Again, it was 212 people that were interviewed to compile this information. And also with this report, it's almost 300 pages. But the information that they had collected was only from October 2023 to July 2024. So that's a very small time frame, but the amount of information that they had collected in that time frame was still enough to legally justify identifying what is happening as a genocide. Because again, like I said, on October 7th, there was loss of life on both sides. But if you look at the number of people that have been affected since October 7th, the Israeli population, that number has moved very little since October 7th, whereas for the Palestinians that are living in the Gaza Strip, you can see that it's now tens of thousands of people that have lost their lives since then. And also, it's important to note that the people that are dying in the Gaza Strip, it is not soldiers. That this is not a battle that is being fought on a battleground. The vast majority of the people that have died since the genocide has begun have been women and children. So about 70% of the people that have been killed since the beginning are women and children. So these are not soldiers on the battlefield that are losing their lives. It's civilians. So I think that that's very important for us to note. And like I said, the numbers that I'm sharing right now are just in that short time frame. So Amnesty was able to report as of that time, 42,000 Palestinians have been killed and 97,000 have been injured. Again, since that time, within that time frame, 13,000 children have been killed. But we know now that there's a lot more that is including in that amount. But I don't think that we should really focus on the amount, whether it's 5 children or 50,000 children. The fact that there are children, such an astronomical amount of children that have been killed during this time, that alone is extremely alarming, and that I think one of the major things that that we need to recognize, not just as U.S. citizens, but on a global stage. The fact that so many children have been killed because some people may have been using the Lancet report that came out a couple of months ago. It says that it's upward of 180,000 people that have been killed. But also, I want folks to keep in mind, like I said earlier, construction equipment and material are not allowed into Gaza. So they can't even give an accurate number because, unfortunately, there are still people, including children, that are still under the rubble. They haven't been able to retrieve family members because they don't have the equipment to do so. So, so when all is said and done, the numbers are going to be a lot higher than I think that people are anticipating. But again, I think we need to focus on the fact that who is being targeted at this time. Like I said, it's not a war being fought between two well-equipped armies. It is a government that is backed by one of the strongest nations in the world with the most sophisticated weapons and technology, basically attacking a civilian population. Also, as far as numbers go, 62% of all of the homes have either been damaged or destroyed. And that affects approximately 1 million of the 2.2 million people that are in Gaza. Also, 63% of all of the structures have been damaged. Over 600,000 students have missed out on an entire academic year in school, and 85% of the schools have sustained some level of damage during this time. So we'll go back to the Amnesty report specifically, and how they were able to identify what was happening was in fact a genocide. So the crime of a genocide is defined under international law. There has to be one of 5 things taking place. 1 is killing members of a group. Number 2 is causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of a group. 3 is deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculating to bringing about physical destruction in whole or part. Number 4, imposing measures intending to prevent births within a group, and forcibly transferring children from one group to another. Also, another thing that has to be there is intent. So was there intent for these things to happen? Some of the evidence that Amnesty was able to put together was the repeated attacks, specifically on civilians and the civilian infrastructure. We've heard about the airstrikes affecting the hospitals, refugee camps, schools, homes, mosques, and churches. Again, like I said, there's a Christian population that lives both in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. So these are not military targets. These are civilian targets. And it's frustrating because like I had mentioned before, the Israeli government is getting aid in the form of military equipment and resources from the United States, which has the strongest military in the world. How they are justifying, with all that technology, I'm not sure how they are missing military targets and hitting the civilian targets. So there's underlining intent there, regardless of what they're saying. It's hard to believe them if they're telling you that these are military targets because of the technology that they have. Another thing is the repeated use of weapons with the wide range of destruction. The weapons that they're using are able to completely destroy entire infrastructures and buildings. Also, the sweeping and incomprehensible and arbitrary evacuation orders. So the Israeli government is constantly displacing the Palestinian population by telling them to move from one place to another. And then they find that place then will be under attack. Some of the families that were interviewed were displaced as many as 10 times. during that block of time that Amnesty was interviewing civilians. Also, when we talk about intent, we're listening to what the Israeli government and military officials are saying. In January of 2024, last year, more than 12 months ago, there's an organization by the name of Palestine Legal. So this was just a few months after the genocide had begun. They had recorded 500 incidences where somebody within the military or the Israeli government made some sort of statement, whether it be a television interview or posting something on social media, where the intent was talking about the destruction of Gaza or the civilians in Gaza. So, for instance, President Herzog stated that in the entire, it's the entire nation that is responsible. There will be no uninvolved civilians. So, in his statement, he's talking about the entire population, the 2.2 million people that are living in Gaza. They're all responsible for what's happening. Also, the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, Israel Katz, said that that the Palestinians in Gaza, referring to the Palestinians in Gaza, that there will be none left when we're done. So that too implies that their underlining agenda is to have the entire population of Gaza either killed or removed from the place or from that region. So with Amnesty's their research, they were able to determine 3 of the 5 things that I had mentioned prior. 3 of those have been taking place since the genocide began. So 1, the killing of members of a particular group. Again, we'll go back to the state, a similar time frame between October 7th and April 20th. 2024, there were 15 airstrikes that took place in northern, central, and southern Gaza. Within the report, there is a map that will show you, and this is just 15 airstrikes out of many, but this is just to amplify a handful that have happened. So within the report, you'll see the 15 strikes that they're referring to. It gives the date and the name of when and where it happened, but also the impact that it had. I don't think many Americans know that in Palestine, whereas sometimes in a lot of places overseas, there are in homes, there's generations of family members that live together. So that, of course, takes place in Palestine too. So in some of these airstrikes, an entire family, from grandparents, parents to children, were basically wiped off the map because of these airstrikes. And in the ones that they show within the 15 in the report, it will tell you within those report within that map, it'll show you how many civilians were killed, and it shows the number of children and the number of generations that were impacted. So a lot of the those specific 15 that they were reporting on, 2 to 3 generations were impacted with one airstrike. In addition to that, the second issue was causing, we needed to identify causing serious bodily or mental harm to the members of the group. So in general, creating the circumstances that would lead to a slow death, such as the lack of proper food, water, and shelter, clothing, and sanitation. Like I said earlier, some of the people have been displaced as many as 10 times. Also, I mentioned that, and this was even before the October 7th attack happened, everything that came into the Gaza Strip was had to be cleared through the Israeli government first. And in a prior report that Amnesty put out identifying Israel as an apartheid state, they had reported that within the Gaza Strip, the Israeli government was they had a mathematical calculation that they were using to dictate how many calories an individual would need to survive. Now, this is just to survive, not to thrive and to live healthy, but just to survive. So they would use that number and calculate how many Palestinians are in the Gaza Strip, and that's the amount of food that they were letting in prior to the October 7th attacks. So they were already not getting enough food and access to clean and safe water before this attack happens. So now we see that the Israeli government is essentially using starvation as a weapon of war, which of course is illegal under international humanitarian law. For our listeners, it's important to note that we hear a lot of this rhetoric on the Western media that Israel has the right to defend itself. There's no place in international law that states that. In fact, on the contrary, because they are the occupying power, they're actually responsible for the civilians that they're occupying. So they're responsible for keeping them safe and allowing them to have access to medical supplies and equipment and access to food and clean and safe water. So they weren't doing that prior to October 7th, and now since then, the conditions have been blown out of the water as far as the numbers. It's now at a catastrophic level, and like I said, it is they're using starvation as a weapon of war. So the third thing was deliberate inflection of a group's condition of life calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or part. So with that, 63% of the crop fields and arable land within the Gaza Strip are now in decline or completely destroyed. 84% of health facilities have been affected. 57% of water infrastructure has been either damaged or destroyed. And this is affecting 1.7 million Palestinians, which is approximately 75% of the population. And again, almost all of the population, 90%, has been displaced at one point or another since the genocide began. Up to up to 10 times displaced, and they're packing up, basically whatever they can hold in their hands with their children, and moving back and forth, basically from what it appears to be as one target over another. So what Amnesty International is asking with this information is for us to take action. So the first step is to take part in opportunities like this to learn what is happening. As I stated before, October 7th was not the beginning of something, but it was a reaction to something. The Palestinians have been living in an apartheid state with horrible conditions for decades. And a lot of Americans were not aware of that. We have been fed this rhetoric that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, where if you know even a little bit of the history, that they're not operating as a democracy. Not everybody has the same rights, and you can't be a democratic state and an occupying power at the same time. That's just it's two separate things. They don't operate hand in hand. So educating ourselves on what's happening, and also people may be discouraged. They're told that it's a long and complicated issue. Yes, there's a lot of history behind what's happening, but I don't consider what is happening complicated. It's very simple. Right? If the blockade was not in place, October 7th wouldn't have happened. If the occupation had not been going on for as long as it had, October 7th wouldn't happen. The Palestinians that are living in these conditions, they want to live, simple lives like the rest of us, in peace, with dignity, with the same rights as we have here, and even as the Israeli population has in Israel proper. That's all they're asking for. So this is a matter of it's not really politics or religion. It's a humanitarian issue. The people in Palestine want to live and go about their lives just as the rest of us do. I've had the opportunity to actually to be in Palestine, not in Gaza, but in the occupied West Bank. And you can see a very, very clear difference as to how the Palestinians live, not only compared to people that are living in Israel, but how the settlers live within the occupied West Bank. Which, by the way, all of the settlements in the occupied West Bank, all of those under international law, every single one of them are illegal. So the people that are living in places like close to Ramallah or Nabes Saleh or Nablus, these settlements, those are all illegal. So I had the opportunity to witness that, and you can see the disparity, the difference in the lifestyles. I was in a village by the name of Nabes Saleh, where the inhabitants of that village have been there for hundreds of years. But when you look at at where they're living, on top of their homes, there's these giant water canisters that are filled on a monthly basis, and that's what they have to use for the entire month. So they have to be very mindful of the amount of water that they're using for just daily things like cooking, showering, watering their lawns and whatnot. But literally across the street, you can see that there is a settlement, and there is they have fresh green grass and manicured lawns and everything. And it's literally right across the street because the settlements have access to resources that the Palestinians don't. So this is an everyday reminder for the Palestinians of how well the settlers who are living there illegally have it, regardless of the fact that them and their ancestors have been there for hundreds of years. So when we're talking about, is this a complicated issue? No, it's not. End the occupation, end the blockade, and then this will give everybody an opportunity to live peacefully. Because at the end of the day, there are Israelis that are not not in line with what the government is implementing, because they know that costs them their security as well. So it's basically the Israeli government and the Zionists that are pushing this agenda to have a Jewish land for the Jewish population. And like I said earlier, there's Christians there too. When they talk about that they want the land for themselves, they don't want the Christian population on there either. They have made it difficult for the Christians as well. Easter last year, they were restricting the amount of people that could go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for Easter. For Christians, that's the holiest day out of the year for us. So the fact that you can't go to church, on Easter, that's very detrimental for the Christian population. So like I said,
Alicia,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Khaled is here and he's on a very limited internet and electricity, and we just want to say a few words to him before he leaves.
Okay.
I really apologize, but
No, that's fine.
Khaled?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Can we see you, or is the internet bad? Okay, good,
Yes,
good.
it's okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the time you spent with us. We really appreciate everything you said. Everybody is inspired by you, and everybody feels so touched and moved by your testimony. I know you
Just
suffered
want to
so
thank
much.
you all for your efforts. I follow you. I follow your activities, and I want to thank all of you, despite you are too much away from here, from Gaza, but we feel your support every day.
Thank you.
And one of my friends here wants. أكيد وقلوبكم معنا أكيد.
Go ahead,
هنا
tell
في
us about your friend.
دكتور نضال أحد أصدقائنا هنا حابب يسلم عليكم ويرسل تحياته، موجود عندي في غزة.
Hi everyone.
Hi, how are you?
hello.
Oh my God.
Oh
Ramadan
my
good?
God.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
He's like, I'm really sad. And I was like, actually, I do know Doctors Against Genocide.
So we have Doctors
Wow.
Against Genocide on the ground in Gaza.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
It's
So
so good
good
to see you guys as well.
So for everyone who doesn't know Dr. Razan is a member of Doctors Against Genocide. She's an American Syrian. She lives in DC, and this is her second mission in Gaza.
There is. Alhamdulillah.
And she's an ER physician.
She's an ER physician.
Her
Thank
third
you for your service,
comes-
Razan.
He
We are
comes
proud
and
of you.
goes to Gaza on the quiet.
Yep. Surprise.
So
Well, it's-
actually, we have a mission. Since you are there on the ground, we have a mission for you.
Yeah,
In
but
recognition of Dr. Khaled, in recognition of his sacrifice, we are appointing him to be the first goodwill ambassador for Doctors Against Genocide.
oh,
And this
it's
is
our absolute honor, Khaled. We
Thank
are
you.
so
It's my
proud
honor.
of you. We love you. Allah يحميك والله يخليك لأهلك.
we
You are
we
one
are
of the
honored.
kind.
We are honored to have you be
للأمانة
our first
يعني
goodwill
it's my
ambassador.
honor يعني حاجة كتير كبيرة وتعني لي كتير للأمانة. شكرا لكم جميعا.
الله يسعدك يا رب.
And we are
Allah
gonna play the
يقويك.
Palestinian national anthem in recognition of you and your people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
1 second.
So you can deliver this in person, Dr. Razan.
I would love to. It'd be my honor.
Thank you for being there.
Thank you for being there, Roseanne. You're amazing.
It's a privilege for me to be here.
Thank you.
Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, 1 moment. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Yes.
screen. Press play.
سالما منعما منعما وغانما مكرما سالما منعما وغانما مكرما الأراك في علاك تبلغ السماك تبلغ السماك موطني موطني مجدنا وعهدنا وواجب من الوفاء يهزنا يهزنا غاية تشرف وراية ترفرف غاية تشرف وراية ترفرف يا هنا في علاك قاهرا عيدك قاهرا عيدك موطني موطني
Dr. Khaled, we're proud to have you.
شكرا كثير لكم.
Palestine is proud of you. The all international medical community is proud of you. And thank you.
Nidal, I want just to take 1 minute to introduce one of my friends here also. She is part of the emergency medical team. She came from abroad to support on field. ممكن بعد إذنك.
Take all your time.
يلا
One of my
All the
friends
time is
here,
yours.
and I'm honored to work with her here in Gaza. Of course, you know her.
Hi, everybody.
Oh my
Sorry, I
God,
think-
Tanya.
How are you?
What is this? Everyone is in Gaza and we're here. We should be with
Yeah,
you.
alhamdulillah.
So
Alhamdulillah,
Tanya and
we,
Razan, you go behind our backs and you don't tell us. You just go get into Gaza, sneak into there without telling us.
honestly, like, it's so difficult to organize these trips. And so half the time you don't think it's gonna happen, and then it happens and you're not sure if you're gonna get rejected. So I kept it on the down low. Even Khaled didn't know till I got here, I
Yes.
think. So
It's great
I
to
haven't been
see
telling
you.
people.
So I know
Yeah.
Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan is famous, but for everyone, anyone if they don't know her, Dr. Tanya, she's also on her, I mean, third or fourth mission to Gaza, I think. And we as Palestinian people, we honor your sacrifice, your service. We are proud of you. We appreciate all what you do. And inshallah, soon, all of us can go back to Gaza. And inshallah,
Inshallah.
one
And Dr.
day our
Tanya is
conference will
with
be held
yeah.
from Al Nasser or Al Shifa or any hospital in Gaza, inshallah.
Dr.
Inshallah.
Tanya is with Doctors Without Borders also, and we claimed her as a Palestinian. She married a Palestinian, so
I'm here with MAP, actually. Medical Aid for Palestinians UK is the organization I'm here with this time. But the road is long. It's going to take a lot of efforts, a lot of funding, a lot of political pressure to rebuild the healthcare system here and to support the Palestinian healthcare workers in rebuilding the system. So yeah, pace your energy and try to stay committed now when you're motivated, because otherwise when things open up and it doesn't seem as urgent, I think everybody will start getting distracted with their personal lives. So
never,
the only
Tanya,
leave you
never.
with is make the commitment now. I don't know if you need to tattoo it onto your body somewhere or write a promise to yourself or
So we promise you that we will not rest, we will not stop until Gaza is rebuilt, until its people have been, compensated for all the losses that they had, until Gaza is beautiful again, and until all the criminals are held accountable, both in Israel, in the United States, in Europe, and anywhere else in the world who were part of this genocidal crime committed against the civilians, the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare worker in Gaza and in Palestine. And again, I think you, Dr. Tanya, Dr. Khaled, Dr. Razan, you are our heroes. You are leading the medical community to do what medicine was supposed to do, which is stand up for justice, for humanity, to save lives, despite all the struggle, despite all the hardships, despite all the risk that you are taking personally, on your personal life, on your safety, with your family, with your job. So we deeply appreciate all what you do, and we know how hard it is, and we know how big is the sacrifice. But if we don't do it, who will? So thank you.
well, we're doing the easy work. These guys are doing the tough job.
We are honored to
Khaled,
have
have you seen
Tanya, what-
Nurse Lana? Also, Nurse Lana from Doctors Against Genocide is there.
Lana, yeah. She's at European Hospital. I actually
Okay,
visited today. Yeah.
part of the group.
all right. Well, say hello to her if you see her.
Bye, everybody.
So stay strong, Ramadan Mubarak, and we get our
Thank you,
strength.
Khaled,
We get
for
our
your
strength
time.
from you guys,
you,
and
thank
we
you so
promise
much.
we will not rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
تصبحوا على خير. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, for being patient.
Oh, of course. That's no problem at all. So we were talking about how folks can get involved. Like as I was saying, the first step is just educating ourselves. 10 or 20 years ago, this genocide probably would have been happening, and it would be off our radar. We wouldn't know. But thanks to social media, we are able to see what's happening as it happens, as it unfolds in real time with people that are experiencing it on the ground. So we don't have to rely on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. We can follow people that are experiencing this, and then it's important to share it out. I've spoke to in the past year and a half, I've spoke to so many people that are they are sympathetic to a number of different humanitarian causes, but they didn't realize what was happening in Gaza. So they're watching the news and they think that they are, informed, and they just aren't, because we are getting filtered information. Like I said, the U.S. government wants us to think that Israel is the only democracy and it's our only ally in the Middle East. But is that really who we want to be, categorized with with a nation that is committing genocide? Like, that's not who we want to be with on the international global stage, right? So it's very important for us to educate ourselves on what's happening. Like I said, it's not a complicated issue. You don't have to be, even myself, I've never taken a law class, whether it's, domestic or international law, but if you just know a couple of key points of what's happening, you can go into your elected officials and speak to them about what's happening and what we feel needs to be done. So one thing that you can do, am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that you can do is to contact your elected officials. So the White House comment line is available on, I'm going to go ahead and put it up on my screen. It's available Tuesdays through Thursdays. I'm not quite sure why it's so limited, but that's, that's what it is. It'll have the number. So there. So the White House comment line is open again Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're asking people to just flood that that comment line. And the asks are to suspend the weapons transfer because before October 7th, the Israeli government was getting $3.8 billion. That's billion. In aid, and the vast majority of that was in the form of military aid, and that was before October 7th. So here they are, they're getting that much aid from, this, like I said, the strongest military with the most up-to-date technology, and they still can't get their house in order. And then what do they do? When they are basically perpetuating a genocide, we reward them with more military weapons and more aid. So that's uncalled for. So we want them to suspend the weapons transfer. We do have a ceasefire that is put in place, but we know that the Israeli government is not abiding to that completely, and it is a temporary ceasefire. We want a permanent ceasefire. We want this genocide to end. Also, we would like for I'm sorry, not the military aid, any of the humanitarian aid that is just basically sitting waiting to go in, that all needs to go through those checkpoints without any conditions. There could be a full truckload of stuff waiting, and if one item on the within that vehicle is considered questionable, they'll reject the entire load. And it could be something as simple as like a nail file. How that's going to bring down the Israeli government, I have no idea. But this is the ridiculousness of the excuses that they give in order to justify not allowing humanitarian aid to get in. Also, another ask is to restore the funding for UNRWA. That was the humanitarian aid that was already put in place in Palestine prior to the October 7th attacks. So we want that all to be restored, because that is a primary source of aid that was going to the Palestinians before all of this happened. So to cut that off too, again, it's just making the living conditions in Gaza just miserable and unlivable for the citizens that are staying there. Another thing that you can do is just contact your elected officials, your congressional representatives, and let them know, the same thing as these things come up, as far as continue to supply more aid in weapons. let them know that that is not how we want to be represented on the world stage. It is, I take pride in the fact that I live in a nation where we can step in a crisis and help if there's a natural disaster or after an armed conflict, something like that. But I don't want to be part of a nation that is complicit in genocide. And we need to let our elected officials know that. And if they're not able or willing to do that job, let them know that we will elect somebody else that will. So if you are interested in having these conversations with your elected officials, please reach out to the facilitators of this particular conversation today, and they can reach out to me, and I can help you facilitate those conversations. I don't want people to feel intimidated because they're speaking to their elected officials. Those people are put in place to work for us. And like I said, this is not a difficult topic. We want everybody to be able to live peacefully and with dignity, and not having to deal with protecting themselves and their families, and with constant airstrikes and displacement and all of these other things. It's mind-boggling, the conditions that they are living in right now, and it's unfortunate that the United States is allowing that to happen. So we want to make sure that our elected officials know that that this is not how we want to operate. And again, like I said, if they are not willing to do it, we'll find somebody else that will. Thank you.
For this important testimony and important call to action. And we at Doctors Against Genocide, we are doing a lot of what you have been advising us to do. We have campaigns, letter campaigns that are directed to our elected officials, including the president, the vice president, the senators, and the Congress, and to prevent forced displacement of the Palestinian people, our own people, to refund UNRWA. And we are in the process of putting together a draft for a resolution. We're looking for sponsors for this resolution to protect healthcare workers and healthcare facilities everywhere in the world, because what we are seeing in Gaza is complete domination of the military of healthcare system as a weapon to punish the population. So we also encourage our members, our colleagues, the people who are listening to us, whoever is willing to put the effort to end this genocide, to join us on our days on the Hill. Our next day is the 12th of March. We are going with dozens of medical professionals together to the Hill, and we are putting appointments to meet with senates mainly, and also the Congress members, to present to them this exact demand that Alicia was speaking about, which is, UNRWA weapons, and prevent military involvement of the Americans in Gaza, and prevent forced displacement. We have in the chat a lot of the petitions that we have, letter campaigns that we have, and ways to join Doctors Against Genocide, ways to join us on the Hill for our action in March, April, and May. And we encourage everyone to donate to Doctor Against Genocide. We are putting together a campaign to support Jenin hospitals that have been attacked, just like the hospitals in Gaza have been attacked, and just like the hospitals in Tulkarem are being attacked. We have heard from our people in Jenin that over 400 houses have been demolished. The hospitals have been surrounded and evacuated, and the same scenario is being played place by place. Wherever Palestinians are, the Israeli genocidal machinery is after us to destroy our livelihood and to punish us collectively.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for this thorough presentation. Thank you for all the work. Thank you personally. We know that you personally have been very instrumental in this report and this work. And we want to thank Amnesty International for finally coming up with this report. But unfortunately, only 16 months after genocide, only after 200,000 people or 300,000 people, civilians, innocent people, have been lost and lost their lives. 2 million people displaced, with no food, with no electricity. I don't want to be the devil advocate, because we are doctors and we are the advocates for life. So forgive me if I want to ask you some tough questions. But again, we really appreciate you personally. We appreciate your work. But there are tough questions from us, from the medical community. And to put it short for you, is Amnesty International complicit in genocide? Is Amnesty International complicit in apartheid? I can explain this for you because Amnesty International has been established in 1961. It's one of the largest international organizations for human rights. They have witnessed multiple genocides all over the world. They should have enough experience to know a genocide before it starts. We know that the Genocide Convention and the Rome Statutes and the ICC, all these regulations say that we should call a genocide, we should prevent a genocide, not call it after the fact, if we are really to protect life and protect humanity. And for us in the medical community who are new to this and would not have enough experience, maybe we didn't know, but for an organization like Amnesty International, who's been working since 1961 on the international stage to prevent genocides and to protect human rights, they have witnessed multiple genocides. And the only lesson we can learn from these processes, the genocide, is that the best way you can do to protect life, to protect the sanctity of life, is to prevent a genocide, to call it out. And again, we are pleased that they finally came out in December 2024 after 16 months of genocide with this report. My question is, did Amnesty International raise any genocide risk, any alerts early on when hundreds and hundreds of genocide scholars said that what's happening is a textbook case of genocide? Did Amnesty International raise any genocide risk when the ICJ said that there's a high plausible case of genocide and Israel should stop it immediately, and they issued these measures to stop the genocide, which Israel refused to do? Is the job of Amnesty International or any other organization is to come back after the fact, only when they collect all the evidence, just to tell us there was a genocide, to please their conscience or to clear their reputation? Or is their job as protectors of human rights to sound the alarm much earlier? They did mention, and they came up with a report about the apartheid a few years ago, but we know that the apartheid has been going on for 80 years. Where was Amnesty International since 1961? There was a genocide in 1948, and it has been going on since then. Where was Amnesty International since then? Why do you only call it after it was completed and committed, and after we lost hundreds of thousands of innocent lives? We think that an independent organization like Amnesty International and other organizations should be the first one to sound the alarm and to do it timely to protect lives, not after the fact. I'm sorry, I mean, these are harsh questions, but we are doctors and we care about life, and we're going to say it bluntly. And I hope you have better answers for me. And again, this is not directly against you personally. I know you. I know you've been trying your hardest to do this. But do you feel in the institution of Amnesty International there is some complicity, there has been some pushback and some censoring at the Amnesty International against this designation and this investigation? So please, if you have any answers or explanation of what's happening, please.
Sure. So I definitely feel the frustration with the international community as far as the timeliness of both the apartheid report and the genocide report. As a member leader with Amnesty International, even myself, I did not necessarily have any input as far as when and how the reports were going to be coming out. But I was part of those conversations as to what's going to happen when they come out. So in my position, I was getting a lot of these same questions from our members because we recognize that things were happening, but wondering why they weren't being addressed appropriately. But what I can say is, I mentioned it earlier on in my discussion, was that Amnesty wants to make sure that they're getting it right. We do get a lot of criticism and pushback, especially with our work pertaining to Israel and Palestine. There are people that are they're just sitting back and waiting for us to make a mistake so they can call it out. And that's unfortunate because, like I had mentioned, when I look at what's happening, I don't look at it as a political issue or a religious issue. It's a humanitarian issue. And right now, it's a humanitarian crisis. So, you know, to wait and to find out how we want to categorize it, it is very frustrating when we can't use the terminology in a more in an earlier fashion. But as I stated, you know, Amnesty did very, very in-depth interviewing. They did it with they collaborate with other NGOs and with people on the ground that are experiencing the genocide and the apartheid as it is happening, and they're getting firsthand explanations of how the Palestinians are living under these conditions. But yes, it is unfortunate that it doesn't come out as quickly as we would like, because we see what's happening and we can identify. Like I said, in January of 2024, Palestine Legal put together a list of 500 different statements or tweets or interview sound bites from 500 Israeli officials, whether they be in the government or the military, that identified intent. So there, you know, we knew what was happening before Amnesty eventually categorized it as such. But I would like to say, hopefully, you know, with that information, now our advocacy can be, we can move it forward and we can do it stronger, because right now, even with this reporting, like I said, it's almost 300 pages, and the United States government, who oftentimes references Amnesty's reporting when it comes to other issues or other global issues, they are saying that that they don't feel that a genocide is happening. Like, I don't know how else you can categorize it, but it is. And I will say that, you know, prior to the release of the report, our executive director that is based out of the IS, Angus Calamard, she was saying that there was evidence of genocide. I know that really doesn't satisfy the question of, you know, yes or no and how we can categorize it. But we were doing our due diligence and moving as fast as we could with the resources that we could. But like I said, now, you know, I hope that people will take that report and take that information and allow their advocacy to be a little bit more solid, because you know, how can you look at what happened at this point and not see that a genocide is happening? I mean, people don't have you know, we take it for granted here. You know, we can I mean, they don't have access to clean and safe water for their children. They're literally, there were some doctors and nurses that were doing tours. I'm based out of Florida. So they were coming through Florida and talking about their experiences when they were on the ground in Gaza. And one of the nurses, she was showing pictures in the hospital, like 300 people in a hospital were using the same toilet. She showed a picture of a child that was outside, and he was dipping his hand in a muddy puddle to get water. Like, this is like, how is this not a humanitarian crisis that we need to, you know, interfere and to assist the people in Gaza, not to continue to give weapons to the people that are perpetuating it?
Yeah.
You know, what we need in the humanitarian organizations and the medical organization is a sense of urgency and a sense of, you know, being completely committed to prevention. before it even happens. And we really hope that we will be able to actually introduce something that is that can be used by everyone, where we define the stages or the warning signs and the symptoms of genocide, which we have been actually calling out for a long time at Doctors Against Genocide. We have seen every step of the way that a genocide is pending. The racism, the dehumanization, the ghettoization, the discrimination, the criminalization of any activity that leads to a complete collapse of any justice that people can have or any justice system that can protect them. And then genocide is a done deal. And this is what has been happening for us in Palestine. And we're hoping to be able to actually prevent this for our people from to continue perpetuating and to actually prevent it for other people as well. So a medical definition of genocide is in order, and it has to be a moral obligation and a professional obligation for us as a medical community and humanitarian organizations to detect the signs and the symptoms that lead to genocide before it happens, so that we can all work together to prevent it and not pretend that this is not our business, or allow political calculations to interfere with our judgment, or even national and tribal obligation. With genocide, there should be none of that. There should only be a focus on prevention and stopping the genocide right now. And we're not even close in Palestine. We are seeing, now the Israelis are not allowing aid in, zero, stop. And
Yeah,
this
I saw that.
This is a crime of starvation, and it's a huge genocidal act. And what is happening? It's a Sunday, just like any other Sunday. We should never let this happen. And please, everyone, join Doctors Against Genocide. We are not going to stop advocating for an end for this. And we will continue to work to make this world better for us and for everyone else, because this is completely unacceptable.
So, I mean, Alicia, again, thank you for everything. And again, I mean, this is a discussion because we're all humans and we're all here to protect humanity and create a better world. It's not directed against any particular person or organization. You mentioned that Amnesty International made sure to get it right and prioritize that over protection of life. So for Amnesty International to get it right, it took them 10 months. They have to wait 10 months to collect evidence, then another 5 months of analysis before they came report 16 months late. Is this standard applicable only to Palestine, or this is a universal standard? Is this a standard that Amnesty International uses in any conflict in the world, to get it right first before they say anything, or to call it out early on, raise the alarm early on, so we can protect life and we can at least try our best to sound the alarm to protect lives? Now, even after 16 months of deliberation, and even after coming to the conclusion of genocide, I read your report. It only refers to the Palestinians as subhuman, and it refers to the entity that committed the genocide, Israel, as an abstract. Israel as an abstract. I mean, who committed the genocide? Is it Israel, the abstract, or there are people, there are leaders, there are armies, there are organizations that committed this genocide, or just Israel as an abstract? And why was it referred to Israel even after the coming to full conclusion of genocide as genocidal Israel? If you came to the conclusion that they're committing a genocide, could you have called them genocidal Israel, genocidal Israeli leaders? And at least you already proved the charge in your report, and you left it as just abstract Israel, as if Israel is an imaginary entity that works, with hidden arms, with hidden weapons, and no one's supporting Israel. The United States, the biggest supporter, was not even mentioned at all in the report. And the only one who is subhuman in this report, who is guilty, is the Palestinians. And you refer to the Palestinians. I mean, you said you already came to a conclusion it is a genocide. So they should be referred to as victims of genocide, not just Palestinians.
So the title of the report that was used as a quote from one of the people that the researchers were interviewing. That was his his feeling about what was happening. So that to answer that question, as far as the speed and accuracy of reporting for other incidences, that I'll be very transparent. I'm not sure. I'm the country specialist for Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, so that is that's my area of focus. So I don't know how fast and how accurate reporting comes out as far as other areas of conflict and incidents that happen around the globe. So I don't know how to justify that because I don't know how fast those come out. I have been with Amnesty since 2009, and in this position, with as far as the country specialist position is concerned, since 2014, and even with the apartheid report, people said that it didn't come out as fast as it should have. But I myself, I don't have any input as far as when and how those reportings come out. Myself, as a political scientist, I could see what was happening before Amnesty identified what was happening. But I'm in a good position, I would say, for myself personally, because I am also on the board for an organization called Partners for Palestine. That is a nonprofit here in the state of Florida that does education and advocacy work. And they don't rely on that type of research and reporting. So for this particular incident, as of October 7th, when we saw the amount of destruction and death and what was happening, we were very early on able to identify that as a genocide. So for me personally, I was able to put on my Partners for Palestine hat. And when I was out in public, I was able to discuss it in that manner. But when I am advocating for the work of Amnesty International, we work as one organization and do things across the different sections, because there are different amnesty sections across the globe. It's not just here in the United States and in London. There's different sections across the globe, and we work as one amnesty. So we rely on the information that is coming out of the International Secretariat in London before we can use that type of language when we're advocating for different things. Like I said, I definitely understand the frustration because just as an individual, I knew what was happening. I could see what was happening. I was monitoring the news on a daily basis. And like I said, it wasn't, the Western news. I was watching international news. So I'm watching these families, as they're trying to pull family members under the rubble, and seeing that, the hospitals and refugee camps are being targeted. So it was very frustrating to not be able to use the appropriate language at the time when we actually saw it happening. But again, I don't think that as individuals, I don't think that we necessarily need to wait, because, there's other organizations, Doctors Without Borders, Human Rights Watch, they have their reporting as well. And, not all of that was coming out fast enough either. But as individuals, we can see that there's a humanitarian crisis that's happening. And I don't think that we necessarily have to wait for these organizations to validate our messaging when we are talking to our elected officials. So I would say if you clearly understand what's happening, that's the time to go and talk to your elected officials and start advocating for what's right.
Thank you for your string voice, and thank you for recognizing it early on. If you don't mind, Karama, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alicia. There is a question that's coming from the chat from Julia Beer, and I would maybe, I'll read it, Nidal. It says, you probably won't like this question, but why did it take so long for Doctors Against Genocide to become active like this? I am not Jewish, but I have been actively supporting actions against genocide through Jewish Voices for Peace since October 7, 2023. We actively call, email Congress, and hold protests since right after the Hamas massacre. JVP strongly condemned Hamas for the massacre. Before this massacre, Defense for Children in Palestine was educating for abducted Palestinian children. I know you have something to say, Nidal, but let me just start by saying, we actually have an article that talks about how Doctors Against Genocide was founded. We are both Palestinian, Dr. Jbour and myself, and we have been organizing against genocide for over 3 years before even the genocide in Gaza was even considered a genocide, because we have started seeing the signs and the symptoms of genocide. Before that, we were actually working with peace groups, including Israeli peace groups, hoping to see a glimpse of a hope that there will be a political solution for the displacement and the marginalization of our people. But what we found instead is that there is complete dehumanization of our voices, and we were only considered a security threat, which led Dr. Jbour and myself to realize that the dehumanization and the denial of human rights of the Palestinian is complete, to the degree that the only outcome is a genocide. And so we have been actually working way before October 7th. And October 7th was definitely not the trigger for the formation of Doctors Against Genocide. And we are committed to any community that experiences this. We actually put a statement out there warning from pending genocides that are happening to even people here in the United States who are being denied medical care, like migrants and undocumented people. There are signs that are very concerning about LGBT community, and any community that suffers from racism is at risk. And our mission is to make this a medical emergency. We are not Jewish Voices for Peace. We are not a political activism group. We are a purely medical organization that is committed to the oath, do no harm, and protect life. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Karam. If I want to add, maybe just emphasize this, that the concept of Doctors Against Genocide was born once we realized as doctors, healthcare workers, that there is a very high risk of genocide to be committed in Palestine. This has started actually late 2021. And the more we studied genocide, the more we studied the history of genocide, the more we got scared, and actually scared to death of what's happening in the West Bank and the genocidal action that was happening there. We did try all what we can to warn against an imminent genocide. Being Palestinians, we have been silenced, we have been pushed back, we have been not listened to. Both our community and the people in the United States, and also the United Nations organizations, pushed back against us. We do have a submission of warning of imminent genocide as early as July 2023. We do have a recording with the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Palestine, Francisca Albanese, in August 2023, warning her that a genocide is happening and there is an imminent threat of mass escalation of this genocide. We consider the United Nations Special Rapporteur office to be complicit in genocide too, because when we warned her about this, she shrugged and she did not take our warning seriously. She herself said at that time that she doesn't think it's a genocide. It was maybe an apartheid and an occupation. We tried to warn everyone. We reached to many organizations here in the US and everywhere that there is a risk of imminent escalation of the genocide in Palestine, as Dr. Hawash mentioned, as early as 2 or 3 years before October 7, and we've been trying to advocate since then. We did not stop for one day, but again, the Western media silenced us. The whole system is pushing against Palestinian voices. They don't want anyone to speak or say anything about the genocide as part of the genocide enablement and perpetrating apparatus. So we have not been silent. It's just people only listen to, the non-Palestinian voices, whether they're Jewish or white. The Palestinian voices have been erased. They only want to see the Palestinians as victims, as weak. But when the Palestinians raise their voices to speak against the crimes committed against them, no one listens to them. And that includes JVP, that includes all these organizations, that include the United Nations. Again, we hold the United Nations also complicit in the crime of genocide against the Palestinian people, because this has been happening for decades and decades, and everyone has been silent. Again, from what we heard from Alicia, is that these organizations, including Amnesty International, will never protect people when they need protection. They will only come after the fact. Unless these organizations go through structural reform to change the processes that they work with so they can call these crimes, sound alarms early on, and solve these conflicts peacefully without a mass loss of life, they will always come too little, too late. And we do appreciate Alicia. We appreciate her personal voice, individual voice, that she knew there was a genocide, but her organization did not recognize this in time. This means you cannot trust this organization, including the United Nations, including the United Nations Special Rapporteur or the Amnesty International, to call these things and to sound the alarm early on when it really matters to protect lives. They will all come when the victims are gone and when the crimes cannot be refuted at all, just to whitewash their name. And we, as global community, as humans, we need better institutions, better organization to protect our life. We need to build a better world for our children. And unfortunately, we cannot trust any of these organizations. They all need to be reformed to the core, including the United Nations and all the organizations that claim to be the defenders of human rights, that puts politics above the protection of life. But again, it has to come through, hard work from all of us, our voices, and we need to join forces and try to create better institutions, reform the ones that we have, so they respond in time. Because if the system continues to be the same, this means that we cannot trust Amnesty International or United Nations, UN Watch or United Nations to call things, in time. They will always come too little, too late after the fact. And do you have any more questions, Karama?
I think that's pretty much it. I think, a genocide demands important and difficult discussions. So I really appreciate you, Alicia, that you're listening to us and, having an open mind about this discussion. Our goal ultimately, collectively, is to do the right thing and to protect people and protect their lives. And we can only do that if we have open, hard discussions where we say, what just happened? Why is it still going? Why is not everybody speaking? And why is it taking so long for some people to even take a stand? So we appreciate you. We appreciate your presence with us. We hope to continue working hand in hand with Amnesty International and other organizations to push against this genocide and have an end to it. I see your hand raised. Did you want to say something?
Yes, yeah, if I could. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the things that you were saying previously. I'm going to take my Amnesty hat off and just speak as so my
Thank you.
my
Thank you. I've been waiting for this. Yes.
So my area of study is political science and history. But being an Amnesty member, it does unfortunately filter my language. But again, I want to encourage people, because me personally, I saw that the genocide was happening just almost immediately. I knew that apartheid was happening when I joined this, when I joined the co-group of Amnesty, the Middle East and North African co-group in 2014. I already knew that the apartheid was happening. Amnesty didn't put the report out until 2022. And I understand that things are not moving at a faster pace. And as part of the organization, for me, it's very difficult. But again, if as an individual, if you recognize what's happening, we don't have to necessarily rely on these reports to make our voices heard, because Dr. Nidal, you're right that as we're quibbling on what to call it, people are losing their life. So as soon as and it doesn't have to be in respect to what's happening in Palestine or this particular genocide. I mean, we see happening in different places across the globe. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what it is. If you see what's happening and you see that there's an injustice happening and you have a voice and you have influence, I think we should all as individuals go out and advocate for those people. Me personally, I don't have any ties to this conflict or to the region. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Muslim. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Israeli. I'm first generation Greek American. I'm a Greek Orthodox. So what happens there does not affect me personally. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's about what I'm not going to sleep well just knowing that me and my family are okay. I need to know that the family across the street, the retired couple across the street, they can afford all of their medications, and the family down the street with a couple of kids, they're getting quality education and their children's tummies are full. At the end of the night, it's about taking care of each other. And we don't have to wait for these big organizations to figure out what's going on. We can use our own minds and figure out what's happening and do our advocacy on our own. If the reporting comes available and we can support our arguments with the reporting, that's great. But please don't wait for people in an office in a distance, in another country, to decide what they're going to call it or how they're going to label it, or if it is what it is. Just go out and do your advocacy, because at the end of the day, we just need to be taking care of each other, whether it's, the neighbors here or the neighbors, across the ocean.
Thank you, Alicia. That is great. Exactly. This is what we want to hear. So all the good people of conscience in the world, we all need to unite. We need to reform these institutions. We need to create better institutions for the protection of all of us,
Absolutely.
for the protection of children. We cannot trust the children of the world at the mercy of Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch or the United Nations or the United States or Israel. All these genocidal or complicit in genocide institutions have to be reformed and deeply reformed, and it's only up to us, the good people of conscience all over the world, the good people everywhere, whether they are in the United States, whether they are in Europe, whether they are in Palestine, whether they are in China. We all need to unite forces and create a better world. What we've been through is a historical disaster, but historical disasters also open up a historical opportunity. We don't want the sacrifice of our people in Gaza to go in vain, and the only way to honor their sacrifice is to reform the whole international system, the whole organizations, to create a better world, so the victims of the next genocide anywhere else in the world get the help in time and get their genocide prevented before it happens. Because otherwise, if we continue to be trusting this organization, from what we hear, that we cannot even trust Amnesty International to call out the next genocide in time, they will wait to get their due diligence, of course, unless the victims are white. But if they are anywhere brown or global south, then they have to wait until these organizations get their due diligence. One more thing is also, I want to bring this out to all the supporters of Palestine. We really appreciate your work. We really appreciate all the support that you gave to the Palestinian people. We appreciate your advocacy and all these organizations that work in human rights also. But we want to raise an important issue. The Palestinian people are not just the subject of your work. They are not just the subject of your advocacy. You need to hear and to listen to the Palestinian voices in their Arabic, in their broken English. The Palestinian voices are the owners of the pain, and they should be the ones who decide what's happening to them, how do they feel, how do they describe this crime. It's not up to anyone to hijack their voice and speak on their behalf and become, a spoken person. So please, and this should apply to any community in the world. If we are talking about the genocide or what's happening in the Sudan, we should emphasize and uplift the voices of the Sudanese people. When we are talking about the Congo, we should listen to the voices of the people of Congo. They are the ones who are living it day in and day out. Their voices should be in the center of any discussion. They are equal human beings like any one of us, and they require and they deserve full attention from all of us, and from all the organizations, from all the countries in the world, and none of these people appoint any of these organizations to be, the speaking person for them. And again, it is good to be an ally. It's good to be a supporter, but your work should be to uplift the voices of the people who are, experiencing these atrocities, these crimes. This is the way how you help them. This is the way how you do their cause the best service you can. If you, I mean, it's tricky sometimes. There is a fine line, but please, we are calling on everyone to be careful with this, and to always honor and amplify and empower the voices of the natives, the people who are going through these tragedies, whether it's in Gaza, whether in Congo, whether Rohingya, whether anywhere in Africa, or any marginalized community in the world. If you're talking about African American in the United States, you should center the voices of the African American. If you're talking about the migrants, LGBT community, they are the ones who are struggling, and we should all listen to them in their voices with their truth, not how we want them to behave or how we want to portray them. And again, Alicia, thank you for being with us. I know it took us, maybe a longer time, but unfortunately, that's how we do it here in Doctors Against Genocide. That's why we try our best to always have voices from Gaza, whether healthcare community or anyone in Gaza, to speak here in our webinar, because we need to hear their voices, not just people talking on their behalf. Thank you,
Can I
everyone,
just
for
say,
being here.
when
Go ahead.
when I was there in 2016, I went with a delegation with an organization called Eyewitness Palestine. And on day one, we went out with one of the, we were able to go and speak to different organizations and individuals that are working throughout the occupied West Bank. It was an amazing opportunity. It was about 2.5 weeks. And one of the first things that we were taught was the Palestinians, they don't need outside aid or for anybody to speak with them or speak on their behalf. Just as you were saying, the thing that she said is, stop your government from writing this blank check to the Israeli government. That's what we need you to do. Other than that, like, we can educate our people, we can feed our people, we can provide our own infrastructure. So thank you for bringing that up, because that just
Yes.
reminded me.
We
what
don't
she
need your
said on
charity. We
day,
don't need your white saviorism. Just get
exactly.
off our
She's like,
neck. Get your
you
needs
guys are
off our
responsible.
neck. We can provide. We can
Yes.
fend for
She said,
ourselves.
you guys are responsible for your government. So stop allowing your government to feed this occupation and the blockade. So that's very, I think that was an excellent point. Thank you. Because that, like I said, that reminded me of what we were taught on the first day of a 2-week delegation.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the global aid washing, which is to keep these communities, the vulnerable communities, at the mercy of the aid, dependent on the aid, instead of going at the root causes of these problems and solving them. Because whether the people in Gaza or in Congo or Sudan, they know how to provide for themselves. They don't need charity. They don't need our charity. The only reason they are needing charity is because of our crimes, because of our bombs, because of our weapons, because of the structures of oppression that we are forcing them to live, because of the siege, because of the apartheid, not because they need charity. And if you really need to help them or help the people in Congo that you are stealing their resources, their minerals, get your knees off them. Stop stealing their resources. Stop throwing bombs at them. Stop killing them. Leave them alone. We, the people of the global south, we don't need anything from the West. Just get off our faces. That's all. We don't need anything from you. We don't need your charity. We don't need your science. We don't need your morality, because you have been exposed. Actually, we are way better off without you. We don't need anything to do with the hypocritic Western culture and society and the system. And this is, again, not against the people of the West. It's against their systems. Fix your systems, fix your governments, bring politicians with a moral compass, with dignity, with integrity, not ones who are bought by the military-industrial complex, by the APAC, by the Israeli lobbies, who are exploiting all of us for the sake of their profit and for the sake of their imperialism, for the sake of their Zionist genocidal project. So the Palestinians do not need the charity. The Palestinians do not need your humanitarian aid. The Palestinians want you to take your government, your bombs, your weapons, your colonization project off their neck, off their back, so they can manage on their own. And they will do it much better. And when Trump says he wants to have Trump Gaza, I'm sorry, just F off Trump, you and your administration. Gaza they know how to rebuild their place. It should be the one who should provide for that, not it should be the United States and Israel who should fund all the rebuilding. The Gaza people will do it on their own, but you are the one who destroyed it. You have to pay for it. And actually, we are urging that all the money that the Genocidal Democratic Party fundraised last year in their election campaign, more than $1.2 million to be used and confiscated immediately to be used for rebuilding Gaza, because Harris and Biden, the war criminals who committed this genocide, they don't deserve this money. They fundraised this money on the back of the victims in Gaza, and this money should be taken from them and used to rebuild and to help the victims that they themselves murdered and mass murdered over the past 18 months. Thank you, everyone. Any final things, Alicia? Any final points?
No, just thank you for the invitation to join the conversation today. I appreciate it.
And again, we apologize for the kind of like frank but blunt conversation, but it's a much needed conversation because
Absolutely.
we don't want to keep pitting down on the real problems, the real causes of the struggles that our humanity is going through. Thank you everyone for being with us. Maisa,
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah. And thank you, Nidal. Yeah. Goodbye, everyone. And thank you for your attention for the 100 people who stayed. You are true DAG. DAG people. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.